government expects you to increase the tax base. That's also the country's expectation. And every expert on the subject echoes that demand. Everybody also expects you to come down heavily on the evaders. But when you act, there are very few who are willing to give you a pat on the back. And therefore, rare stories or rare exceptions of incidents or developments, they almost become anecdotal. But nonetheless, that's the environment in which the tax department does function. And it goes to the credit of the direct tax department that even when last year the economy was recovering out of a slowdown phase and not many expected the tax collections to rise significantly, the direct tax collections did rise by about 9% plus, which brought us very close to the revised targets itself. This year, with an increased buoyancy, improved GDP growth rates, we expect a growth of 14 to 15%. And that seems reasonably plausible. It's only with that that the increased expenditure of the government can be met. Last year we were successful in managing the fiscal deficit. The target had been set earlier. In fact, on account of a large number of measures, we were able to marginally even beat the target, improve upon it. This year we very consciously set a very reasonable target. The fiscal deficit for 4% has to come down to 3.9%. Seeing the tax buoyancy, we can comfortably beat that target. But the real objective is not to do that, because we want to increase expenditure, because increased expenditure leads to growth. And therefore, even if there are larger collections, we'd like to see those being invested in areas of infrastructure, in areas of irrigation, in the social sectors, so that that is able to bring larger dividends back to the economy. In your functional culture, you have the very important and onerous responsibility of recovering every rupee which is due to the government. About taxation laws, it is said that there are no grey areas. Either a tax is payable or it's not payable. If it's not payable, no attempt has to be made to recover it. But if it is payable, then there is no scope for any other collateral considerations why it must not be recovered for the government. The base has to increase, and there is sufficient scope for the base being increased. Evasion has to be checked. The parallel economy has to be squeezed. And yet it has to be done in a very fair manner, not in a harsh manner. And in doing so, as senior officials, you have to ensure that the entire chain of officials maintain the highest standards of ethics and integrity. The last 1 year, we have indicated the approach of the government towards taxation reforms. In indirect taxes, the process of introduction of the GST is on. A lot of work has been done, a lot of work remains to be done, and we have only few months left to accomplish that task. In direct taxes, as far as corporate tax is concerned, our effort over the next 4 years is to bring down the taxation to global levels and phase out the exemptions to the extent it is possible. As far as individual taxpayers are concerned, while expanding the base, bringing within the scope the non-filers who should have become filers, and I see that you have in the last few months an impressive track record in that regard, we also are trying to ensure that that segment needs a certain set of exemptions so that we can encourage them to spend and we can encourage them to save. We should all be conscious of the fact that even when we talk in terms of expansion of the base, there are inbuilt limitations. If 55 to 60% of India lives on agriculture, that's the number of families which are outside the tax base. So your target base gets considerably shrunk. And it's out of the rest, which may also include a large number of people who fall in the exempted category, that you really have to target. There are several initiatives we've taken. And Indian society is also evolving its attitudes. Every well-meaning advisor would tell you, as I mentioned earlier, the tax base has to be expanded, black money has to be squeezed out. At the same time, if you take steps to do that, you have to listen the taunt of draconian steps which are being taken. The black money law which has been cleared by Parliament, no honest taxpayer has anything to fear. It's targeted only against those who have stacked assets abroad. The department would be coming out with its policy that even they are being given a compliance window on the new taxation which has been imposed on those assets outside. It's only those who have defied the system in the past and those who want to defy the compliance period also who may have something to worry about. There are steps which have been announced and some may be announced in future with regard to squeezing the quantum of black money. If the base increases, if the collections increase, and those who have to pay taxation are compelled to pay it, the ability of the government to spend and also then concessions in terms of rates to the honest taxpayers also improves. I have in the last session also introduced the Benami Properties Law, which will be considered by Parliament itself. We hope to have that law legislated soon. Use of technology has been encouraged. You got the distinction of being awarded by the Honorable Prime Minister for the exceptional work which has been done. I do understand that the CBDT is also working on simplification in many areas, including the forms, which will be a great asset to the taxpayer itself. The policy has to be crystal clear that nobody should be harassed, but the evader must not succeed. If within the parameters of this policy, we continue to do our job, which I said in the opening comments is very unenviable job, I'm sure you would have complied with the mandate that has been given to you. I wish your deliberations today a great success, and I'm sure this year you'll probably certainly set the record for the highest ever collections, but also beat the targets which we have set for you. I wish you all the best.
सरकार ने अपना पहला वर्ष संपन्न किया है। इस वर्ष में केंद्र सरकार बनने के साथ साथ राज्यों में भी पार्टी की ताकत खूब